What skill set do I need to get the dream job that I desire? That's a typical question that every fresh graduate asks before stepping into the market full of job chaos and a lot of competition. Well, we have with us Mr. Narasimha Rao today, the Executive VP of Infosys, to shed some light on the same. So let's get on with this session on what industry wants.
This is the second part of the session. So I try to highlight what is changing out there, and it's important for all of you to understand. Hopefully all of you by now at least agree to keep me happy that there are going to be opportunities. If you're convinced about it, it's great. And I think let's talk about what will make us succeed, what will make you succeed in this world. What do you need to do, right? Typically, these are the skills which we will need going forward, right? And I think it's extremely important we understand each one of these. I was just on the way I was reading what Mary Barra talked about. She is the CEO of General Motors. General Motors, not a technology company, right? They manufacture cars. And in her mind, everybody passing out of college today should have skills in coding. That's what she thinks. Whether you are an accountant, you are a production floor person, you are a human resources manager, you are a marketing professional, you need to have coding skills. That's what she believes. Because ultimately, technology is going to impact every aspect of our lives. And if you can make technology work for you, you will be a superior professional, right? And I think that's something all of us need to understand. Now, I called it very generically coding skills. I never talked about any specific language. I think often we see this trend that students are rushing to learn the latest programming language available out there. I think that is not required. That's absolutely not required. I think fundamentally the way coding is done, I don't think has changed over the last 3 or 4 decades. I don't expect that to change. It's all about logical thinking, algorithmic thinking, right? Can you think in a structured manner? Can you understand a problem, break it down and solve it? That's the key. But can you do it well? Have you done it enough? The problem I have with a number of these training programs which people tend to do is they all happen at a very superficial level. The latest version of Java, latest version of Power Builder or Python skills or anything people talk about, most students go and acquire some extremely superficial skills of them, and they acquire the superficial skills on 20 different of these languages, which is completely a waste of time. You much rather focus your energies and attention on understanding one of those technologies to a lot of depth. And when I say a lot of depth, can you make it work for you? Like Shantanu talked about, if tomorrow somebody were to give you a piece of code in a language which you know, can you quickly understand what is working in it and what is not working in it? Right? And it is not about syntax at all. I think again I said, learning a syntax of a new programming language is the easiest. Today there are a number of tools which will actually do the syntax for you. If you structure your solution to your problem, the code will be automatically generated for you. Right? But you need to be able to structurally break down a problem and be able to solve it. And the more times you have done that in the past, the better you can do it in future. So all of you, I'm sure, would have done some projects of your own in your college or outside. You really need to understand what has been your contribution to those projects. A lot of times, I think that's where students make a mistake, that they take the projects extremely lighter way. They don't take it too seriously. A lot of times, I'm sure I'm not speaking for this bunch of students here, people probably just take a project report from the previous batches and replicate the same thing. Time is spent in the so-called Xeroxing skill or binding skills and all of that stuff, which is a complete waste of time. And like I said, in future, all of them will be automated, right? So the key will be, and nobody is going to, in a job situation, probably I'm going to change track. In a job situation, nobody will ask you a question about what you have not done. They will only ask you about what you have done. But can you stand up and talk about what you have done? And that's where we have a problem with number of people. They can't, right? So if randomly I take 20 people from here and ask you to talk about the project you have done, I'm not sure more than 5 or 6 of you can do a confident job of it and defend what you have done to a reasonable degree. A lot of times I do interviews in technology and subjects which I don't know myself. I'm not a subject matter expert, but I can very easily see when the other person knows what he's talking about or when he doesn't know what he's talking about. That skill I have, and that's all I need to interview people. So your skill will be to be able to convince me that you know what you're talking about. So that 1, 2, 3 projects you do, have you contributed? Unfortunately, some of these projects probably are group projects, and like all groups, there'll be that one soul who's serious, who's doing it. Other guys are obviously having fun. But when push comes to shove, it becomes a problem. You're not doing it for anybody else. You have to stop thinking that education is for somebody else's benefit. If you want to succeed, you have to do it because you want to learn stuff. And that's the key. And that way the university education offers us phenomenal opportunity to learn while we make mistakes. Right? To take as much time we want to understand something. And that's where really I need all of you to focus on. So strong coding skill is something which today is a requirement everywhere. I'll come back to what I'm talking about here. And each of you have to ask yourself, what are you good at? Right? And be able to convince the other person that I'm good at this for XYZ reason, and this is what I've done with it. Right? I think that's the key. The second one increasingly is about problem finders versus problem solvers. Right? I think we talked about how automation and robotics and AI will take away a lot of jobs, and they will take away a lot of jobs when a solution is already known. Right? Where we don't see the technology still come in a long way is the ability to find newer problems to solve. Right? For example, what is the solution to the traffic problem we have in this IIIT junction? Right? I don't think there's any algorithm written for it. Right? I don't think any computer can really come up with an answer to that. That will require the intellect of a human mind to come up with solutions to solve that problem. Right? So can you identify the problems to be solved and can you solve them? That is where, if you combine this with the previous slides we talked about, in what ways are technologies going to evolve in the next 5-10 years, talking about connected things, talking about explosion of data, talking about computing power becoming bigger and bigger, you have to identify those problems which these technologies can solve. If you can do that, you will be a winner. Right? That's the key. Some of you are going to be entrepreneurs, some of you are going to do startups. What does a startup typically do? They're trying to solve a problem out there which there is no solution. Right? They're trying to identify a problem out there for the society or for a business, and they're trying to use technology to solve that problem. So that's the skill required if some of you are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. The key will be if you can do this problem finding and problem solving in a smaller degree while you are in the institute. I'm sure there are a number of those problems in your own institute, in your local society where you live in, among the social groups you're active in. What problems can you find and solve for those groups you're part of? And if you have examples of those, they will help you make a better career. And there are techniques available out there like design thinking, which will help you identify those problems you can solve. So if you can familiarize with some of those processes to identify the right problems to solve, it will only help you. Right? Now, third aspect I want to talk about is depth versus breadth. Right? The aspect I talked about, how you don't have to know 20 different technologies but know one thing very well. I think that is something we all need to understand. Equally, while depth is important, please also understand you need to understand some bit of breadth, which is important. What is happening on the cloud side? What is happening on data analytics side? What is happening on connected things, which is IoT, right? You need to at least understand where are these technologies going at a high level and how can they be used in your problem. There is no problem out there which will be solved only by one entity. More and more problems will be solved by a combination of a cloud and superior processing and data analytics and all of that put together. So you will need people with depth in one area but understanding all the dimensions, and that's where you can solve problems better. And that's a balance people need to find. Where will you specialize in and how much of breadth of knowledge will you acquire? Right? The next aspect I talk about is, and this is something which Vishal again talks about very passionately, is increasingly a lot of us, when we're giving a problem, we write a program to solve it. Right? can you actually do something to automate the solution itself? So the next time somebody has a problem, they don't have to again write a piece of code to solve the problem, that it automatically solved by itself. Right? For example, the easiest example to give is somebody wants a report of everybody sitting in the room. So you write it and give it today to them. Tomorrow, you should be able to come with a solution where every time somebody wants a report, you don't have to sit and write it for them and give. You automate it and give it to the person so that he can use it every time he wants it. Right? So how can you automate what you are doing today is extremely important. And do you have the wherewithal to automate it? And do you have any examples of projects which you have done or work you have done where you have automated something? Right? I think that's extremely important for all of you to also figure out. The last aspect, the learn to learn, I think is again an extremely important thing. I think it is not linked to technology, but it is linked to the point I talked about in the previous slide, how 60% of the jobs for people in college today will be in areas which are not existent today. The only way you can survive in that scenario is if you can learn new stuff all the time. And I know that at one time there used to be this perception that once you are passed out of triple IT, life is all done, you don't have to do anything about it. You just have to sit and go to office and after that go on site and do all of that stuff. Right? There's no more studies to be required. That's what all of us used to think in college. Unfortunately, that is no longer true. All of us are challenged, all of us need to learn new stuff every single day. And that ability to learn on our own is extremely important. And there again, a lot of companies, when they recruit people, they look for this aspect of your personality. Can you learn by yourself? Have you learned something by yourself? Right? This is where again, I think I would encourage all of you, it's also coming in my next slide, is while all of us learn what is taught to us in class with various degrees of efficiency, have we also learned something on our own? Right? And it is, I'm not talking about learning to swim or learning to drive or learning to play cricket. Right? It's about something useful for your profession. Right? So that learning to learn is extremely important. And today there are any number of resources available to people to learn on their own. Hopefully all of you are aware of those resources available to you. I think Talent Sprint itself has a number of resources available to you guys to learn things on your own. But even outside, the number of those people who can provide you resources where you can learn the most advanced topics on your own. So if you can demonstrate that in an interview situation, you will get a tremendous advantage. If there is one thing we've talked about in Infosys, all our existence as the core skill of people we are looking for, it is learnability. We want people who can learn stuff all the time. It is one thing into which we have invested as a company the most is into our learning engines. We have our global education center in Mysore where 20,000 people can get trained at any time in any technology which comes up tomorrow. And we think that is the biggest differentiator we have. If tomorrow there is a new skill required, new competency required out there for business, we can figure out how to train our people quickly and then train in large numbers in that new competency which is required. And we also think we have people who can learn those things fast. So that ability to learn is something which we are looking in everybody. Do you have that enthusiasm? Do you have the inclination? Do you have the aptitude to learn new stuff on your own? And I think that is something we don't necessarily acquire in a college education very easily. But I think given that all of us understand its importance, I would encourage all of you to learn something on your own and learn it to sufficient degree of depth. It's again not superficial learning. We talked about that already.
So now you know that only technical skills and ability to write the right programs is not enough at this age to get you the right job. You have to be prepared for more than that to get what you actually desire. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure that you are confident enough now to go ahead and get cracking on your interviews. So good luck, guys.